Welcome everybody, and I'd like to thank you for taking time out to attend this webinar. We're going to be discussing about digitizing expense claims, and I really hope that it will be a useful and interesting session for all of us. We will be talking about enhancing finance productivity and eliminating human efforts by digitizing the expense claims process for organizations. We will also see how simplifying user experience using AI can be beneficial for users and finance professionals. How data and analytics can help transform some of the processes as well. My name is Vikram Potnis, and I lead partnerships and business development at Fyle. I'm really thrilled to be joined by Brad Salter, the CFO of TST Construction. TST Construction is a customer of Fyle, and thank you, Brad. You have graciously accepted our invite to join the webinar. Brad comes with a rich experience of handling key roles across multiple large and small organizations across various industry verticals prior to joining TST. Brad is based out of Virginia Beach and is a Darden School of Business alumnus. Later in the session today, Brad will share his experience of going through the process of digitization. I'm also very happy to introduce Alpana, who will be co-presenting today's webinar. Alpana is the Executive Director of Business Process Management at Nextime, which is a partner of Fyle. Alpana comes with an experience of over 17 years and heads a team of over 350 finance and accounting professionals. She is an accountant by qualification and has received a CPA from Georgia State Board of Accountancy. Thank you, Alpana, for joining me on this webinar. So before we begin the session today, some ground rules. All participants are on mute by default. We will be having a Q&A session towards the end of the session when participants will be unmuted. There is also an option of asking questions over chat during the webinar. So feel free to type in your questions as we go along, and we will be addressing those during the Q&A session. The webinar is being recorded, so you will receive a link to view the same after the webinar. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Alpana take the stage, and over to you, Alpana.
Thanks, Vikram. Thanks for the introduction. And hi, everybody. I hope you all are doing well, staying safe, and taking good care of yourself. Before we jump to the subject of today's discussion, I want to give a quick introduction to Nextime. Nextime is an award-winning, employee-owned global business advisory organization serving clients across the globe for more than 50 countries. We are in the business for more than half century, and we have 1,200 plus professionals supporting clients. We have offices in 6 cities in India, in Dubai, and in Chicago. Our service offerings include business consulting, which primarily takes care of strategic initiatives, management, operations, transformation, and transaction advisory. Professional services, where we look after assurance, transfer pricing, tax, and risk advisory. And business services, which primarily focuses on business process management, specializing in contract management and shared services. So that's a quick introduction of Nextime to you. Moving forward, before we understand the possibilities through digitization and its impact, let's look at the manual process, how it looks like. So a team member travels for business purposes and is incurring expenses, starts collecting receipts, keeps it aside because he wants to submit the claim after the visit is, the trip is over. Once the trip is over, he has to fill a form either manually or in Excel in the company's format. collates the expense receipts, attaches it to the expense claim form. Depending on the process of the organization, if it has to be submitted to the regional office or a head office, he has to courier it. If it is in the same city, he has to go to the office and submit the claim. Typically, this entire thing takes about 23 minutes. That's our experience, and survey conducted tells us that it just typically takes 23 minutes for an employee to do this task. This also includes he has to add per diem and charges that they do not have receipts for, like tips. After that, it goes to the supervisor. Supervisor have to approve the claims. At times, they have to do the exceptional approval because either the limit has exceeded or the timeline has exceeded, and a supervisor has to do some exceptional approvals. After that, I just want to tell you that a couple of our clients have mentioned that this is one of the tasks they hate to do, and for this purpose they have to travel to the office and spend hours in just approving expense claims. After that, it goes to the finance department. Finance department has to look at the claim, verify the supporting documents for policy compliance, for authenticity of the supporting documents, for approval checks. Any queries they have on the supporting documents, they have to do a back and forth with the employees. Meanwhile, the employee who has submitted the claim might have got impatient. Where is my claim when I'm getting paid? And the finance department has to address to those queries, questions. Then obviously the finance department has to do the GL coding, cost center coding, tax coding, because they have to process these documents into the ERP. There is a disbursement of the claim where either the payout happens along with your payroll process, or depending on your policy again or process again, it happens bi-monthly. So that is another task the finance team has to do. There are always last minute submissions. There are always people coming after cutoff or urgent request, and finance team is always working towards these stringent timelines and last minute pressures. And because it's so much of a paper-based process, there is filing, indexing, archival, and retrieval for audit purposes. So this is how the end-to-end process looks like for many organizations even today. And on an average, it takes around 90 minutes for one such claim to be processed end-to-end. Now, even if you have, maybe 100 sales team traveling throughout the month and submitting claims. If we are talking about 100 claims, we are talking about 9,000 minutes invested in this end-to-end process. So that's the quantum of efforts we are talking about. All this hassle or all this long, lengthy process, why we are doing it? We are doing it to achieve simple objectives of paying the employee accurately and on time, doing accounting of these expenses again accurately and on time, and obviously having control over the spend. But during this entire process, almost each stakeholder is going through a lot of pain points. So if I'm talking about the employee, the entire process is manual. The submission itself is a very cumbersome process. Following up for their payment, handling the queries, if there are deductions, dealing with those deductions, understanding the reason is again a painful process. If I'm talking about the finance department, for them it's a very laborious process. There are stringent timelines, there are escalations and noise in the system, howsoever efficient the team is. And from a management perspective, there is a very limited visibility of what is happening. And there are no analytics or analysis available at their fingertips about the spend, about the reasons for delays, or even the policy violations or the usual suspects doing the policy violation. So a lot of people are doing a lot of efforts, and many of them are not very happy. And this is a state we observe in a lot of organizations who are handling this expense accounting manually. This entire process also takes around 3 weeks elapsed time because there is a waiting time from one claim moving to different stakeholders. So clearly there is a clear case of transformation, clear reason of transformation. And particularly in today's world and today's situation when people are working remotely, processes driven by pen and paper are not only inefficient or error prone, but they are also becoming unviable. Also, there are a lot of cost pressures, and transforming the process is becoming need of an hour. So when we talk about transformation of process, what are we talking? Any transformation of process typically starts with simplifying and standardizing of process. It needs to be seen holistically and not just a technology deployment opportunity. Because any technology deployment starts with simplification and standardization of the process. So for expense management, it starts with looking at your policy. So your policy needs to be simplified, taking care of all the controls that you want to put in the policy. It needs to be articulated very clearly. It needs to be very easy to follow. And also, it's very, very important that time is invested in educating the employees about the policy. Educating employees on policy solves a lot of issues relating to back and forth of queries, deductions, delays, and exception handling. Ultimately, the organization wants a seamless user experience and minimum deductions and escalation. We need to look at the process. A lot of times there are non-standard processes driven by different regions or driven by different business units. So it's clearly an opportunity to standardize the process and simplify the process as much as possible. We may want to look at the approval metrics and the process to handle exceptions. After this, there is a clear opportunity for technology deployment. I feel that if we invest in simplification and standardization, the benefits that we get from technology deployments are manifold. And I would like Vikram to take it forward from here to talk more about technology and what benefits it can give to any organization.
Thank you so much, Alpana. That was really insightful on how important policy and process is. While we talk about digital transformation and how technology can be an enabler, we sometimes oversee the fact that technology can ensure you accelerate the benefits that an organization can benefit from. But no doubt about it, having the right policies, having the right processes, and the people involved in the whole activity is extremely important as well. Before we delve into technology being an enabler, let me quickly touch upon a quick introduction of Fyle. Fyle was started by Yash and Siva about 4 years ago. It was started with an ambition to address a personal frustration. Yash has been a sales guy all through his career, and he was extremely frustrated with the process that he had to follow to claim expenses. He's worked in large organizations and small organizations as well. The pain point didn't change much in terms of the effort and the frustration which was leading to expense claim process. He's worked in companies like Cisco, WebEx, Qbol, Capillary Technologies, and so on. He got along with Siva to address this problem with a vision to make the expense management process effortless and almost second nature to employees, while freeing up time for finance professionals to do higher value activities than data entry or just cross-checking of certain compliances and policies checks. Over the last 4 years, we've grown to be one of the most loved expense management solutions by employees and trusted by customers across 17 different countries. We are an American company, and we have offices in the US and India. We're backed by some of the leading investors like the New York-based Tiger Global, London-based View Capital, and Tokyo-based BNext Ventures, amongst a few others. We have been recognized by G2 and Capterra as leaders and highest rated expense management solutions across multiple categories. We've also been recognized by IDC as an innovator in the expense management category. Right. So that's a little bit about a little brief about Fyle. The problem around expense management has been there for years now. I remember an anecdote that was put up on Twitter. Buzz Aldrin, who was one of the astronauts who traveled to the orbit of the moon about 50 years ago, he had put up an expense claim note on Twitter saying he had to submit a lengthy note in order to claim his reimbursements back as he went from back to the moon. This is more anecdotal, but it goes to say that it's not a new problem that we're trying to solve. Right? There have been multiple attempts made in order to solve this problem, and the reason why it is such an important problem to solve is perhaps because the employee expense management is one of the most uncontrolled expense on the balance sheet of most organizations, because you don't really have, as finance professionals or the CXOs of organizations, we really lack the visibility that is possible in a few other types of spend category, but not expenses or employee expenses. And it also is one of the biggest, I think, 1/3 or 4th biggest spend for any company, besides, let's say, payroll and rentals and so on. A recurring spend. This is one of the big categories of spend. So why does it matter so much then? So let's say we consider a 1,000-member team with an average processing. So a 1,000-member team on an average per year processes anything between 45,000 to 50,000 receipts. So that is the quantum that we're talking about. And Alpana just spoke about the 90 minutes per expense report. We have seen a similar kind of a number, and that multiplied by the number of employees who are submitting claims on a monthly basis can result in a lot of leakage in terms of time spent, productive time spent by the employees, as well as approvers, as well as the finance team, all encompassing. So this involves a fair amount of manual effort, and it's also an area that is exposed to a lot of fraud, and an area where employees try to sort of compensate for losing receipts by fudging expense reports and so on. So it is an area of concern for a lot of finance teams and CFOs as well. Most of the CFOs that we've spoken to have come back to us to say that their teams end up spending a disproportionate amount of time on this process, and that's what we have set out to sort of eliminate as well. So if you were to sort of break this down into this entire process into let's say 3 parts, right? So one would be how do we reduce the manual effort required by the employee in order to comply to the process set out by the organization? How do we reduce the manual work to be done by approvers, typically supervisors or department heads and so on? How do we also reduce the work that is done by finance and administrators and accounting teams in order to deliver higher value insights for the business, which are really data driven rather than mundane activities of like chasing the employees or chasing the approvers to approve these expenses on time and so on. A lot of change over the last 10 years or so, right? So digital transformation has been on the agenda for a lot of companies. But I think the last 10 weeks has really accelerated the need for it. I mean, people were thinking about digital transformation, and it was mostly on management roadmaps, but it was never in the execution phase. I think the last 10 weeks or so has really shown us the need for digital transformation, and it is something which we are being forced to do as well. And that is basically driven by the fact that more than 50% of the companies that we've spoken to, right, plan to have long-term remote work plans, right? So they don't really expect employees to come back into office. And I was reading a recent survey wherein a large number of remote workforces have been asked permanently not to come back to office, and they can continue to work from remote locations across the United States. Most of the organizations, however, feel they're not really equipped to sort of manage this distributed finance workloads, right? The other cause of concern is how do we train and how do we ensure that adoption of new technology is simpler and easier? And also, is the software or the technology being implemented ready for today's generation? I mean, today's generation workforce expects enterprise applications to be similar to consumer-like applications that they're used to on a regular basis that they use. So let's look at how technology and basically companies need to future-proof with software and technology which are easy to use, faster to adopt, as well as eliminate the need for huge training investments in terms of time and money and effort as well. So how can technology, digitization, and automation really help? Right. So if we start thinking where actually the spend happens, and if we can get information captured closer to the actual spend. Let's say an employee submits or spends, using a personal credit card or a corporate credit card at a hotel, or maybe at a restaurant, or for the purpose of travel, or to purchase something for the organization. It could be as simple as things like stationery that they would want to purchase, or it could be as complex things as whole systems or whole software systems, or it could be when it comes to field force, it could be things like material that they would want to purchase on behalf of the company. And how do they go about, submitting these expenses in today's world, right? So we have to start thinking where exactly the spend is happening, and can we get that information captured as close as possible to the type of spend that they're doing, and can we make this a thoughtless experience, or almost a second nature for the employee by being able to submit expenses from where they typically store these receipts. This will not only improve and increase the frequency, not only improve the quality of receipts that we are able to submit, but also increase the frequency of submission of these expenses. And this would mean we need to be looking at applications that employees use on a regular basis, like text messaging, Gmail, Google Outlook, Slack, Microsoft Teams, various point of sale systems, credit card feeds. All of them, can they be linked to make sure that employees have a single click experience when they try to submit their expenses? All this by bringing in enterprise experience into applications that the employees are already familiar with. This will help in reducing a lot of friction, and also think about it like sort of clicking a Facebook like button, right? You don't have to really be taught how to click that Facebook like button. It's super intuitive, and nobody really thought of that. We just figured it out. So think about technology which can help employees do that. And these kind of systems can really help in, wherein employees don't really need to open yet another application, go through the learning curve of understanding how exactly the application works. Instead, using an existing application that they're already familiar with to submit an expense can be a great way to increase adoption, reduce the time required for training people, as well as getting the data captured or expenses captured as close as possible to the spend itself. With this, the companies can increase adoption and can drastically, see the reduction in the learning curve, right? So this software should help, eventually by reducing the manual work that is required to be done. I'm referring to the finance team's functions here, right? So let's say we're able to capture the data in real time automatically, which is context aware, as well as seamless as a click of a button. From a finance team's perspective, if you think about the ambiguity that can be eliminated by bringing in pre-checks even before the employee submits the expenses. Think about an expense engine in the background which checks for the context, out of policy expenses, and also notifies users about it in real time, allowing them to justify any deviations or eliminate the need for back and forth between the employees, approvers, and the finance teams. This can drastically reduce the overall time required for processing. Also referring to what Alpana was mentioning earlier, what can take, let's say, 90 minutes overall to about 25 to 30 days, including the time elapsed, can be greatly reduced to under 5 minutes and maybe a matter of a couple of elapsed days by implementing a technology like this. Technology can, this can also help identify good behavior and reward employees and restrict the bad behavior, right? So ease of use and simplicity does not mean really compromising on compliance. It should, in fact, increase the compliance. I mean, and put the company, let's say, on a path of what we call often as continuous compliance. So a combination of technology, processes, policy, and the right amount of reward to people can actually result in not only reducing the overall timelines from weeks to days, but to potentially also, a couple of hours as well. So let's look at what happens, when such an experience is delivered to employees. What are some of the benefits that organizations stand to gain? It establishes a great amount of control to finance teams. Let's say machine-driven data extractions can bring in better ability to identify risks automatically and proactively act on it. It also helps companies to stay on the path to be proactive and also take data-driven decisions. Any activity performed on the system will be traceable, trackable, logged, and searchable as well, and always audit ready, right? So it should be such that in case there is an issue, then we should be able to get into it and easily track where exactly the problem has occurred. The entire information should be, in a way that that can help us identify any deviations with minimal effort. Finally, it results in a system which can be implemented fairly quickly, and there should be a comprehensive view from an administrative lens at the highest level. A high-level view for the administrators, which can help them in taking decisions, but also the ability to drill down to individual entries to figure out if something is going wrong. Right. So this makes it very easy for finance teams and allows them to take decisions which are accurate and also timely. Automation can also provide a great amount of opportunity to reduce the mundane activities, right? So think about the approvals, for example, right? So systems can help automate the whole approval workflow. while giving the right amount of control and visibility to stakeholders, and also surfacing any sort of anomalies that you would come up with. Things like follow-up, reminders can be set up in a way that can stop, so that people can stop thinking about it. And getting others to do specific tasks can be completely automated and system-driven. Another thing which becomes very important is the ability to integrate with payment systems like corporate credit cards and systems of records like accounting systems, ERPs, payrolls, and so on. And from time to time, any kind of spend being made to making it super simple to track, as close as possible to the spend, identifying why and when and where the spend is being made, whether it is in policy or not, whether ensuring compliance, having the ability to prevent or surface such anomalies, and also storing it centrally in a way that is easily searchable and can help in enriching the data and provide insights to companies to eventually take better decisions. Right. So these are some of the benefits of automation, and these are some of, if properly applied, automation and systems can result in improving financial controls, and also gaining a whole lot of benefits that we discussed so far. I also wanted to take an opportunity to sort of demonstrate, that such a system exists today in the form of Fyle. So very quickly, I want to take you through a demo wherein I'll walk you through using Fyle. How do we submit expenses on the single click of a button inside everyday applications? How can we reduce the manual work of processing at the time of using real-time policy checks, and also show you a snapshot of how we can lead with insights, and help identifying fraud and detecting any risks. So with that, I will just switch to my Fyle dashboard. This is the way Fyle dashboard looks. So although this is the way Fyle dashboard looks, we encourage. Sorry about that. Yeah, so we actually encourage people to not to use the Fyle application itself, right? So there are several quick action buttons available here to submit expenses, report and track progress, and so on. But we really encourage employees not to use our application. We want them to use everyday applications in order to submit the expenses. I'm going to take you through a couple of different ways to submit expenses. I'll show you how we deliver this inside of Gmail. The same applies within Outlook. The same applies within Slack and a whole lot of other applications that users use on an everyday basis. So I've just I just did a search for Uber receipts. Let me click on this one over here. So Fyle is embedded within the Gmail interface as a small little button over here, like this. All I need to do as an employee is click on this button, and Fyle automatically recognizes the date of spend, the amount of spend, the currency of spend, as well as the merchant name. Right. So all of these are automatically extracted from within the Gmail interface. And all the employee needs to do is mention the purpose of the visit. Let's say client visit, and I can add it to a report. This can also be integrated very well with corporate cards. So the reconciliation of any spend with regards to the corporate card spend will happen in real time within the Gmail interface. So all I need to do is click on Fyle. As you can see over here, let me just enlarge this to make it readable. So there's a policy violation detected. In real time, Fyle was able to detect that there is a policy violation. Looks like I've already spent more than $50 on taxi bills on this particular day. So Fyle has automatically detected that there is a violation over here and exception has been marked. there are two other ways of dealing with this exception. In this case, we're asking the employees to submit an explanation right then and there. There are other ways of dealing with this exception also. We can automatically bring in an additional approver in case certain limits are crossed or certain exceptions are caused, which are not really automatically approvable as well. So we can bring in an additional approver. We can also block certain types of expenses from occurring as well. Search charges applicable. I'll just provide an reason why exactly this has happened. Fyle has also detected that there is a duplicate entry. So possibly I've used the same receipt in the past. So that's the reason why the system has automatically detected that there is a duplicate entry already here. Let's look at how exactly this looks within the system. Within the Fyle interface, this is the way this looks. As you can see, all of this data has been captured automatically, including the distance of the travel. We've also captured the entire receipt. In addition to the body of the email, we are able to get or scan through any attachments, be it a PDF format or be it in a image format. So all of these formats are supported by default, and we are able to extract information from all of these formats. We also maintain a very rich audit trail, which can be extremely useful in terms of audits or identifying any policy violations which has occurred on behalf of the employee. Another way of submitting the expense would be using the mobile interface. So if you were to use the mobile interface to submit the expense, then let me just quickly share my mobile screen over here. So all I need to do using the mobile interface is just open the mobile app and go on to InstaFile and point and shoot at the receipt that I want to submit. And all I need to do is focus and submit it and click on continue. As you can see, this is a receipt for $2.90. Let's see if it's automatically picked up that it's a $2.90 receipt. The currency has been picked up automatically. It's also picked up the category of spend, which is food. Let's see if the merchant has been picked up. Yeah, Hudson News is indeed what it is. And the date of spend has been picked up automatically. And going through the receipt, it's also picked up that it's food. I just need to choose whether it was paid by me or paid using a card. I can choose whether I want to tag it to a particular project and click on save. And as simple as that. The same thing can be done using WhatsApp as well or text messaging as well. All I need to do is click a photograph and send it to a particular number, and my expense is submitted. As simple as that. Very quickly, let's look at how an administrator can look at all of these data points as well. Switching gears and getting into the analytics view. So here we are able to have different types of analytics views. One from an insight standpoint, wherein we are able to identify what category of spend are employees spending on, what department is spending how much, which projects are spending how much, what are the business units spending, and so on and so forth. Also identify any exceptions which are being made by certain types of employees. Operational insights. How long is it taking for employees to submit expenses? How long is it taking for employees or approvers to approve it? And how long is it taking for the finance team to verify and release it for reimbursement? We are also able to identify risks. So we assign something on a risk scores. We have the ability to identify specific types of risks which are being seen across organizations. And the more data that we feed into the system, the better the system gets at it. So as and when the data is enriched, we are able to identify top policy violators. Is there a sudden change in the spend or category of spend? Who are the top spenders? Are people submitting expenses over the weekend? Are people requesting for travel within 7 days or after 7 days? And several other options exist. So with that, I wanted to quickly, summarize in terms of the technology, what technology can do. applying the right technology can really help in eliminating a whole lot of manual work from tracking, reduce manual work from processing and approvals, and also it can lead with insights and lead with data for finance teams and for the CXOs of organizations. So that's what I wanted to discuss today. And with that, I would love to invite Brad onto panel to talk about his experience on digitizing, going through the digitization process at TST Constructions. Over to you, Brad.
Thank you so much for the introduction. Thanks so much. Thanks for having me. I tell you, we've been very happy with Fyle so far. So I think we started the process in October of last year, and then went live beginning of January. And I think just to give you a little bit of information about us, TST is a construction company. We have about 200 employees at this point, but we've grown pretty rapidly. So 10 years ago, we had 2 employees, and now we're up to 200. I joined TST a little over a year ago, and I came from a Fortune 200 company where we had, defined, SAP, Concur, the big process. I did not like it when I was there because I thought it was a little too much and not flexible. And I would just think that if you're going to put a process in place, it needs to be easy. So my main goal for finding a solution was I just want to focus on the end user's experience. So since we grew from 2 to 200 employees, when I came here, we were still doing expense reports in Excel. So employees were scanning receipts. We were entering it into an Excel template and then emailing it to the accounting team. And the accounting team was always following up as we're trying to reconcile credit card receipts. They were always following up about, oh, you didn't provide a receipt for XYZ. And it can create a almost adversarial relationship. And there's really no reason for that. And I think that the goal is my belief is that if you make it easy for the employees, I've been an employee, I've done it, I know. I mean, I file all of, I use my credit card all the time, and I file, everything. And I understand if it's easy or if it's not. And if I don't want to do it, I don't want to try to put the hammer down and make anybody out in the field, much less, as a construction company, you could be out in the rain, swiping a card, having a receipt, and it could just blow away. And things like that happen. And there's no reason to make it even more hard. So I think that we're happy with where we are right now. I think it's also helped us speed up the overall process. So when employees, say you have enough employees, things just come up. The credit card machine wasn't working, or my card got declined, or, and then we want to make sure we get our employees their money back as quickly as we possibly can. And I think this really helps as well. I think that, we put together a team and we looked at all of the offerings that were out there, from the big players to a lot that were fully integrated with our accounting software. And I think what made Fyle stand out was a couple things. One, it fit with our core goal, which was make it as easy as possible for the employee. And I just found that a lot of the other solutions really were driven by, they were really accounting solutions. And not to put anyone down, it's just the goal needs to be the happier the employee, the happier the accounting department and the staff is going to be. So even if it's more work for the accounting team, if they have the data, then we can figure out a process to make that easier. But if we're not getting the information at the front end, then you're not going to be able to get the result you want on the back end either. So I think a lot of the other solutions that we looked at, they were fine, but I always went back to, anytime there was a duplicate entry, if we had to enter something in more than once, then I, as a user, just wonder why. I don't want to have to do that. And anything that's coming in digitally, I don't want to have to manually enter it in, because if it's a receipt from Holiday Inn, well, great. I will type in Holiday Inn and it'll come in, and then the next person will say Holiday Inn Express, or the next person will say, mistype Holiday Inn, and it's just more work. But if it's coming in from the direct digital feed, then it matches. And there's no reason to have me type in Holiday Inn to begin with. So we just wanted to put together a process which is as little input. And what we decided on is, as soon as you get a receipt, you file it as a paper receipt, you file it with the app, you enter in, you confirm the amount, which it's not always perfect, but it's pretty good. I would say it's at least 90%, correct, if not better. And then the categories that we require. So we require a project and kind of a cost bucket. But other than that, my recommendation would be leave it as open as possible, because the more required fields you have, the more pain I think you have down the road. You want to make it as easy as possible. So let's see. Then the next thing I want to talk about is with some of the other solutions, I think it might have been a little bit easier on the accounting side, but again, I wanted to avoid the duplication of efforts, and I think the matching process that Fyle uses is pretty good. I think we're working through it, and again, nothing's 100%, but my motto is don't let perfect be the enemy of good. And so I think that we have a very good solution, and we're certainly getting better and better. So as far as any negatives that we found, I think that Fyle is so flexible, and you're able to, and I like that, but I think that it can be somewhat intimidating to some of our, maybe not as tech savvy team members. So what we did in order to do that is that we defined a process that we wanted our employees to follow. So I know that it's nice that you can do it via email, or you can do it via text, or use Instagram, or whatever we can, anything else, or we just kind of wanted to lock it down and say, all right, guys, instead of giving you 12 different options of doing this, we found that it's going to be better, and for our size, for who we're rolling it out to, it was, and I think some of it is some of our younger, more tech savvy, they figure it out anyway, and they do it the way that they want. And I think that's great. But having a foundation of a almost a TST way of filing and providing we created a kind of a PDF that we fired over to everybody with lots of screenshots and said, all right, this is the way that we can do it. And but of course, right after we sent that out, there was a update, and so we had to go do it again. But again, that's good because it was all improvements. So
great.
We're committed to continuing to improve the process as well, and I think that's just the right attitude to have going into it.
Great.
Is there anything else you kind of want me to hit on?
No, Brad, I think that is very insightful, and thanks so much for providing those inputs. Really valuable coming in from a practitioner who has done that and who has reaped the benefits of, basically also gone through not only the technology part, but also like what Alpana was alluding to in terms of the process and also the policies and managing the people as well. Thanks so much for taking us through that. With that, I'd like to thank Brad.
There's just one more thing I want to say.
Yes,
is I think the biggest mistake that companies make, honestly, this process is normally, you think about who's making the purchase decision. And it's going to be the accounting department. So it's going to be the CFOs. It's going to be that, right? And it's only natural to want to focus on what you see every day and make it easier for the accounting staff, the accounting team. We have a very incredible accounting team here at TST, and I'm very thankful for them. But I think that without coaching and ensuring that, it would have been easy for us to pick a solution that just fit our, accounting staff here at the home office and made it easier here, but made it harder for everyone out in the field. And I think that by kind of switching the focus and ensuring ease of use out in the field, even though it may be a little bit harder, there'd be a little bit more work on the back end, it's still, long run, it's a much better decision.
Glad to know that, Brad. Thank you so much. With that, I will turn it over to Alpana for some of our closing remarks, as well as how the need for human intelligence supporting the artificial intelligence. Over to you, Alpana.
Thanks, Vikram, and thanks, Brad. We talked about process, and we talked about technology, and we also talked about a customer talking about the gains that their organization saw through this journey of digitization. But I want to talk about the role of people like us in this entire journey. So I just want to make a point that howsoever robust the technology is, there is never a one-fit solution for all organizations. So there is always an element of customization, and that is driven by the business needs and the complexity of business. And I just want to give an example of one of our clients. It's a business aviation company managing third-party aircraft. Now, their crew members are traveling all over the world and incurring expenses on behalf of the aircraft owners. Now, each transaction has to be identified for an aircraft, for a flight, for a location, for a currency. There is further complexity because the commercial arrangement with each aircraft owner is unique. So whether that line item is rechargeable back to the owner or not is also driven by the commercial arrangement. So this complexity is just an example of how complex a simple process like expense management can become. And even if you want to deploy a technology, there needs to be a team of experts hand-holding you to understand your business needs and understand the technology and bridge the gap. Second area where we have already talked about policy and process simplification, and a lot of time you need experts who can design it for you, define it for you, and even manage it on an ongoing basis. certain countries have compliance requirement specific to tax accounting, specific to hard copy management, and that is also an area where we need human intervention, even if there is technology supporting this process. A lot of companies still feel the need to have a human verification of supporting documents from fraud perspective, from compliance perspective, also sample audits on the approvals and policy compliance. So though a lot of the tasks are taken care of by the technology, there is still a need of a finance team controlling the process end to end and managing it. Help desk, it is always underrated, but I believe that that is the biggest responsibility of finance function, because every organization is even deploying a technology is with a goal of enhancing user experience. And if there is a slightest noise in the system, this team is helping the employees. One is to solve their problems, but also educate them on policy changes and creating awareness. Last but not the least, analytics, and that is where the management benefits the most. Having a bird eye view of their spend, different, though the technology can give you data points, but somebody has to convert that data into information that is relevant to you. And it can be a region specific or a business unit specific analytics, spend analytics, trend analytics, employee behavior analysis, and there is so much you can do with the data. So again, you need a team of experts who can design those analytics or dynamic analytics reports, predictive analytics report based on the data that technology gives you. So I truly believe that transformation requires touching all the aspects of the process, and technology deployment coupled with a team of experts can give you substantial benefits relating to cost reduction and enhancing user experience. That's the last couple of points from me, and thank you everybody for joining this, and over to you, Vikram.
Thank you so much, Alpana. That was indeed very insightful in terms of the closing remarks. I'd like to end the session by again thanking one and all for taking time off to sort of attend this webinar, as well as also mention that a copy of the recording will be sent out on email to your registered email address for the webinar. With that, I'd like to thank all of our teams who worked on putting this webinar together. And again, Brad and Alpana, it's been great to have you on board on this webinar, and it's been really great to co-present with you. I'm assuming this was helpful and beneficial for all the participants. If you have any questions, we're open to take them for a few minutes now, a couple of minutes. Siddharth, are there any questions on the?
Not right now. We're waiting for the participants to see if they have something.
Right. Participants, you may now ask any questions on the list, on the Q&A section. If you have any questions, please.
There's just one question. Something came in. Are you working to get Fyle to integrate with QuickBooks?
All right. Thanks. Yeah. Thanks so much for that question. I think a couple of things we didn't address. It was just a sneak peek of what Fyle can provide to you. But we have a self-service integration with QuickBooks, with Sage Intacct, with NetSuite, and API-based integrations with SAP, with Microsoft Dynamics, and a lot of other HRMS systems as well. So we already do have most of these integrations in place. Cherry, thanks for asking that question. Really helpful for the rest of them also, I guess. Any other questions? Right. So just to read reiterate the fact that we will be sharing our details on an email, contact details. So please feel free to send us out any further questions or queries that you may have. You can also request for an elaborate demo of Fyle on our website by going on to www.filehq.com, and you can request for a demo right there. We will be sharing details about Alpana and Brad as well on the email that we'll be sending out. So feel free to sort of reach out in case there are any questions around the topics that they have discussed in today's session. With that, again, thanks so much, Brad, for taking time to attend and participate and give valuable insights. Really appreciate it. Alpana, thank you so much. There was some fantastic content, and thanks Rishu and Siddharth as well for all the effort. And participants, thank you so much for taking time.